So much, Ross. I've been to a lot of events. I've been to my share of events where solar energy is discussed, celebrated, promoted, and I gotta say, I think this is the coolest solar event I've ever been to. I'm just really honored to be here. I'm dressed a bit casually because as soon as I get done speaking, I got to go coach my son's Little League game in Tacoma Park. But I just want to ask you all, if you are formally part of this solar co-op, if you sat on a committee, you did any work to help form it, if you were an elected official who helped make it happen, if you were a member of the church that helped make this co-op happen, if you had something to do with this co-op getting started today, please stand up so we can see who all you are. And I want you to applaud yourself and the rest of us. So you can see it takes a village on this sort of project. It's just impossible to do a community project like this with just one person's vision and one person's effort. I know, because I've seen other neighborhoods try it. I tried to form a solar cooperative back in 2001, 2002, and we met. I mean, my house was solarized. I solarized my own house in 2001. But we then, several of us in Tacoma Park, Silver Spring, tried to get a co-op off the ground, and all the hurdles that y'all met, all the obstacles, all the Pepco and bureaucracy, and you can't, everybody telling you can't do it, we'd like to do it, but we can't. All the things that you guys faced, they defeated us back in the early 2000s. We gave up. And I've seen a lot of other co-ops try to get off the ground, and it was just so hard. And so the fact that you guys have done it, there are a few more that have had success. The solar co-op in Northwest DC is a great success story as well, and there's others. You guys are real breakthrough pioneers, so I'm just really, really honored to be here to salute all of you for all the work that you do. And at the end today, we want to collect hair samples so we can clone all of you, create tens of thousands of you across the country. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank the church or the brethren for being such a core part of this, and also Sarah Mosley and Ross Salowich for that great introduction. I really want to thank them. They're the ones who got me here today. So I'm going to keep my comments really brief. We know climate change. You know, this is a group I don't need to review the really increasingly horrifying inventory of ongoing impacts. The impacts are already here. It's not a sort of kind of maybe thing in the future. It's here. We see it every day. You know, everywhere on the planet, it's too wet, too dry, too cold, too warm. Climate is changing. We also know that there was a huge accident in the Gulf of Mexico on April 20th. I've been down to coastal Louisiana twice since the oil spill started. I was there on Memorial Day weekend for 4 days. I flew over the spill in a small seaplane over the mouth of the Mississippi River in Plaquemines Parish. I went out into the Gulf Coast with an out-of-work crabber in his boat. Went to places like Devil's Bay, ironically and appropriately named, covered in oil pelicans and the rest. And I will tell you, it is so depressing, as we all know. I have a long association with coastal Louisiana. I went down there a lot right after Katrina as well, and that was depressing. But this oil spill is depressing in a different way. After Katrina, once the immediate humanitarian crisis was alleviated, everybody had to recover, and there was a coming together, that feeling that, a crisis brings out the best in people, and neighbors helping neighbors throughout the coastal parishes in Louisiana. You heard the sound of hammering and sawing and repair, and people saying, my father went through hurricanes, my grandfather went through hurricanes, we're going to get through this. So coming together and bringing out the best in people. You saw a lot of that after Katrina that the media frankly missed. This time, it's not like that. There is so much fear. There is so much anger. There is so much blame. frankly, there's a bringing out the ugliest qualities in many people. Every other ad on television in South Louisiana is some law firm saying, have you been harmed by this bill? Have you sued yet? Do you need legal representation? It is a really, really depressing atmosphere. I saw people putting up a billboard along one of the major South Louisiana roads, and it was like an emergency paper shredding company. Do you have documents you need to shred in a hurry? I mean, there's this like scurrying, like roaches scurrying when you turn the lights on. Everybody ready to blame, hide, deflect, and it's really sad. And I believe that it's because this is such an ugly addiction. Our addiction to oil is so appalling. It is so disruptive. It is so violent. It is so dysfunctional. It is so disruptive to our national security, to our air quality, to our water quality, to our life-giving climate. Our addiction to oil is irrational. It is absurd. It is avoidable. And yet we do it, and we hang on to it. So now that we're now drilling in mile-deep sections of ocean. You go out further in the Gulf of Mexico, there are giant oil rigs, one called Bullwinkle, one's called the Mars Project. They go through 5 miles of water to get to the ocean surface and then go another mile below that. You know, Al Gore said that addiction, you know, a heroin addict will, once all the veins collapse in his arms and his neck, will start shooting up at his toes. I mean, that's what we're doing with oil. This deep shore drilling, this going deeper and deeper and having no plan for when things go wrong. That's us shooting up in our toes. This is desperate. And it's time to stop. And the thing that people don't realize is that it's not just a few dozen platforms in the Gulf of Mexico providing us with our domestic oil. It's 5,000 platforms in the Gulf. There are 6,000 offshore oil platforms in the world. 5,000 of them are in the Gulf of Mexico. Right from Grand Isle, where Barack Obama gave his speech a couple of weeks ago on the Barrier Island. I was there on that island. From that island, from the podium where Obama spoke, you could count 9 offshore platforms with the naked eye. You just see them out in the ocean. And you go further, and there's just thousands. All around you, thousands and thousands. And on nautical charts of the Gulf of Mexico, they're all marked on the charts, and they literally look like a galaxy of stars in the Gulf of Mexico. And they coincidentally group themselves into constellations, so that both captains say, radio to one another, I'm passing the bunny ears on my way to the barbecue pit. Literally constellations of oil platforms. This is what we're talking about. This is the scale. This is the volume. This is the intensity of our addiction to a finite, dangerous, climate-wrecking fuel. And the point from the oil spill has to be, the lesson we need to learn is we need to get off oil. It's not enough to have better regulation. We can't regulate away human error. We can't regulate away equipment malfunction when it's at this scale. We have to get off oil. And we know what we need to get onto. Better efficiency, wind power, solar, all the alternatives. And that's what we need. And that's why your example is so crucially important. What you guys are doing, the obstacles you overcame, the barriers in an economy and a culture that politically favors dirty energy, that discourages and puts up barriers to clean, efficient energy. You guys broke through. You made it happen. It's tangible. It's real. And it's just so wonderful that you guys have done it. And now we need to tell the story. We need to tell this story in the context of the oil spill, this story in the context of global climate change, and inspire others to follow in your wake. But it's not enough. You know, if we try just, church by church, neighborhood by neighborhood, to put up the solar panels, to tell Aunt Betty to change her light bulbs, we know we don't have enough time to do it house by house. We'd like to. I've done it at my house. You guys have done it. My house is solarized. I have compact fluorescent light bulbs. I drive a Prius. I'm a vegetarian. I'm all about going green. I'm obnoxiously green in my life. And we all need to do that. We need to ask everyone we know to take the voluntary steps. We all have a deep moral responsibility to do all we can in our personal lives. But that's not enough. The analogy I commonly use is the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Look, that was a big problem, obviously, but we didn't turn to the bigoted Southern sheriffs and university presidents in the South and say, George Wallace, will you consider voluntarily 10 ways to go integrated, maybe on Saturdays? you know, we didn't leave it to voluntary change. Sometimes the moral wrong, the moral imperative is so great that we ban the practice. You cannot discriminate based on race. That's it. No more apartheid in this country. It's illegal. We need to do the same with these dirty, violent, destructive fuels. We need to phase out, by law, our use of oil, coal, and natural gas. We need to go green as an economy. We need to ask our politicians, in Washington especially, what are the 10, you know, we're doing 10 things to go green at home and at our churches. What are the 10 things you're doing, Congressman and Senator, the 10 things you're doing to pass green statutes to help us phase out oil, coal, and natural gas so that we won't have any more oil spills in the Gulf of Mexico, because we won't have this ugly addiction to oil to begin with, this ugly addiction to coal, where half the electricity in this region comes from the combustion of coal. Much of that is mountaintop removal coal. So I celebrate you, I honor you, I'm humbled by what you've done. I'm just so happy to have been invited to the coolest solar ceremony I've ever been to. I want you guys to keep it up, to know that you've inspired me and so many other people. We need to continue to go green in our lives, in our communities, and we really need to understand and keep our eyes on the prize, that the ultimate end of this pathway that we're walking and running along together, the ultimate end of this pathway is a cap on carbon emissions passed by the United States Congress, signed by our President as soon as possible. Let's keep our eye on that prize, and thank you so much.